This is L.H. Bailey, who wrote, edited a number of horticultural books at the turn of the previous century out of Cornell. And he said, if a grower knows why, he or she will teach themselves how. So we're going to get into that bit of the how a little bit, because it's important to understand how, again, nature works, how nature does help. One of the slides I present is this one when I'm talking about holistic disease management. And I thought it'd be an interesting twist to start here. When I present about alternatives to fungicides and to insecticides and all the things that seem to make up the world of orcharding in the past 100 years, I like to point out that the reason we need to use those heavier duty spray medicines is because, in truth, there are underlying nutritional and biological deficiencies behind it. And you're going to be amazed at where some of these spring from. Like if your thing is to grow fruit trees in a golf course fairway and mow the lawn every week, there's a price that's being paid with that choice. I mean, from your perspective, the human, that's the neat look that you want. And I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. You know, I am up here today speaking for the biology, speaking for the fungi, speaking for the trees. And it works the way it works. And if you're locked on a certain idea, well, we'll get some spray medicines to compensate for the fact that you're the way that you are. So in exploring this, rather than focusing on the curculio and the apple maggot fly, the apple scab disease, fire blight as a bacterial disease, I want to focus on where health comes from. What makes for that radiant green world that keeps us alive? So in a kind of a quick synopsis, you know, it's about the sunshine, green leaves photosynthesizing, nitrogen in the soil being created by rhizobacteria, the breakdown of organic matter. That nitrogen is combined with the plant sugars that comes out of photosynthesis, that creates proteins. That process has a few steps along the way, and it ends up where plants produce secondary plant metabolites, we call them. I don't like that word. I'm going to shift that word to resistance metabolites. But these are essentially the immune function of the tree. And just like you and I have an immune system that deals with that cold virus, an immune system that has adaptive abilities to deal with what may come next, plants use phytochemistry to do the same thing. And there is a direct immune response, and there's also an adaptive immune response. And as we start to, what I like to do is overlay some human analogies with this to help us understand it a little bit better. So in a quick sense, that's the making of a healthy plant. But I'd like to go a little deeper. It's photosynthesis. The light energy from our nearest star is combined with carbon dioxide being taken in by the leaf. Carbon sugars are created. The first sugars are simple sugars. And these sugars are what the tree offers in trade to the biology below. So photosynthesis is a very important part of the story. And photosynthesis is not necessarily efficient. For that to happen, it requires that the full range of trace minerals be available to that plant. So we're going to understand that just a little bit better. But when those trace minerals are there, the tree, the plant, is able to produce more carbon sugars, thus able to trade more and connect to the biology in the soil. This whole business of investing in minerals, and we're going to explore that, is really about upping those levels of carbon sugars, what you might call the carbon currency that plants work with soil biology, so that more can happen. And so for a little bit of investment, there is quite a return. So you're going to hear how I emphasize up front when we're creating a healthy orchard or a healthy garden or a healthy lawn. All this applies across the spectrum. That investment in turn is going to make the biology much more able to go further with some of the goals we're going to be stating. So for plants, down there in the root zone, what's known as the rhizosphere, there's many different places where nutrients are exchanged. mycorrhizal fungi, which we're going to be exploring in a little more depth, are tapping in further out. But right around that root zone are all sorts of biology. And this is the bacteria, this is the decomposition fungi. If they're close, the plant roots are close to organic matter, and they often are on that humus layer. That biology is attractive because the plant has these carbon sugars. And that biology, as we're going to learn, is where a lot of the mineralization comes from, where plants get nutrients. This is the way that nature does nutrition. So the bacterial component is very important. Carbon sugars are there. Nitrogen is taken up. Nitrogen can come in one of two forms. One is more user-friendly in terms of our goals, and the other form is not quite so. We're going to learn to distinguish that. But what's happening here is amino acids essentially are in the plant sap, and if there are enzymes which facilitate the synthesis of the next stage of the molecule forming, you get into incomplete proteins called peptides, and if it goes all the way, and this is going to tie into that nitrogen picture, we have complete proteins. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is relevant. So that whole enzyme piece, where this synthesis is facilitated by, also ties into trace minerals being available. So we're going to be pounding this theme about mineralization. As far as nitrogen goes, this is a study from 1974. We've known for a long time that nitrate fertilization is associated with higher levels of disease in fruit crops. So, just a simple analogy there is you come right out of the barn with fresh manure and you dump it under your pear tree. Your pear tree shows a lot of vigorous, lush response, a lot of growth, and very likely encounters fire blight bacteria because it's in a weakened state in terms of resisting that. So dumping that fresh load of manure, which is basically nitrates, on the ground underneath that tree causes a problem. It's far better if plants take up nitrogen in the ammonium form. So how does that work? When a microbe eats a microbe, a bacteria consumes another bacteria, and a pseudomycetes consumes a fungi, what have you. A protozoa consumes that whole trophic level. Nematodes get involved. Waste products are given off. Those waste products contain nitrogen and other trace minerals in a soluble form. In the, what I call the rhizosphere, when it's a fungal-dominated ecosystem, you have slightly more acidity, which means nitrifying bacteria are not at work to the same degree that they are in a more bacterial-dominated ecosystem. So we're going to tie all these things together. Less nitrifying bacteria means that the nitrogen in the form of the ammonium is what the plant takes up. But when the plant takes up nitrogen in the form of nitrate, it has to actually convert it back to ammonium to use it. And it's that converting back that the plant has to invest some of its energy. So if we can help our fruit trees, our berries, avoid that step by having that fungal rich soil ecosystem where the trees and plants are growing, we're going to have more energy for the plant to continue on this healthy plant metabolism pathway that I'm describing.